The word circus has a history of over 150 years. Philip Astley founded the first official circus in 1768 in England. A traditional circus involves a troupe of highly skilled acrobats, clowns, and trained animals working together to entertain a crowd. It's also, let's be honest, a bit bizarre. Where else would you witness wild animals acting tame, girls spinning midair, or clowns doing absurd stunts in full view? Most vintage circuses took pride in their exotic animals and great sideshows. Still, across its grand legacy, the circus has transformed massively in scale and style. Here are the 15 most iconic and shocking performers from vintage circus freak shows. Number 15. Paul Desmuke, the Judge. Paul didn't need arms to stun an audience. He was born in 1876 in Atascosa County, Texas, and he learned to do everything with his feet, like writing, playing the violin, even hurling knives with frightening precision. His wife, Mae Simmons, bravely stood as his human target, trusting his aim completely. Paul toured with Al G. Barnes' Circus, Zach Miller's 101 Ranch Wild West show, and starred in Ripley's Believe It or Not at Chicago's Century of Progress Expo. He even featured in silent films like The Unknown and The Sideshow, 1928, wowing crowds with his dexterity. But the story didn't end there. He returned home and became a justice of the peace, earning the nickname The Judge. Watching him sign official documents with his toes, just as quickly as most did with hands, was something unforgettable. Paul passed away in 1949, not only as a phenomenal performer, but as living proof that ability isn't in the limbs, it's in the will. Number 14. America's Siamese Twins. Mary and Margaret drew attention from the moment they were born in 1912 in Massachusetts. Conjoined yet healthy and sharp, they made headlines long before setting foot on stage. By 14, they started a vaudeville career, singing, dancing, and playing piano as a polished sister act. Billed as America's Siamese Twins, they toured with Ringling Brothers, Barnum, and Cole Brothers, performing across the US and Europe. Crowds were drawn not just by their condition, but by how easily they moved and harmonized as one. For years, they blended talent with novelty, becoming a staple of sideshow entertainment. But by their 30s, they'd stepped away, choosing a quieter life back home. They opened a small shop, selling handmade crafts, finally settling into the kind of normal they'd once been denied. Mary and Margaret lived until 1967, never separated. They weren't remembered with pity, but as performers who turned one body into two voices, two talents, and a career built entirely on their terms. They didn't give up. Number 13. Miss Amelia Hill. Amelia earned her name as one of the great fat ladies of the late 1800s. Likely a New Yorker, she often posed for Charles Eisenman's studio and appeared at Bowery venues like Bunnell's Museum. By age 12, Amelia already weighed nearly 300 pounds, and by her 40s, she reached 475 pounds at just 4 feet, 9 inches. She toured with the Great London Circus, Barnum and London, and Four Paw Cells, performing as far south as New Orleans. In 1905, she launched an act with fellow performer Mary Peters called the Fat Lady Boxing Act, blending dance, humor, and vaudeville flair. Amelia once requested $50 a week, a bold ask for that era. Her willingness to strip from dress to bloomers for the boxing number showed how performers adapted to keep working, blurring burlesque and spectacle. Hill's story reflected survival and tenacity, a woman who transformed public fascination with her weight into a career that paid the bills. Number 12. The Wild Dancing South African Bushman. Audiences in the early 1900s expected wild men to growl and shock, but Clicquot gave them something real. Born Frans Tabosch in 1857, a member of South Africa's Khoisan people, he carried the rhythm of traditional dance. His gift caught the attention of Captain Hepston, who became his manager and took him overseas. By 1913, Clicquot was performing in England and France, and by 1917, he had reached Coney Island's Dreamland and the Ringling Brothers sideshow. Promoters played it up, dressing him in leopard skins and spinning stories about him sleeping beside chimpanzees. The name Clicquot came from the click sounds of his native language. But beneath the showbiz nonsense, his dances were the real thing, drawn from heritage, not gimmicks. While other wild men faked savagery, Clicquot brought rhythm, presence, and truth. He kept performing until 1939 and died the following year. For some, he's just a poster. For others, he's still remembered, the dancer who never needed to fake wildness to be unforgettable. Number 11. Lucio and Simplicio Godino. Lucio and Simplicio Godino, twin brothers from the Philippines, spent childhoods under circus lights. Born in 1908, they were first shown at Coney Island until authorities stepped in, calling it cruel. With no guardians, the Philippine ambassador to the U.S. took them in, ensuring they were educated. They learned quickly, sports, music, dance, growing into skilled performers. In 1929, they married identical twin sisters from the Philippines, turning heads with a pairing as rare as their lives. They launched a vaudeville act, blending banter, rhythm, and movement. Crowds loved it. For a while, it seemed they'd outgrown the freak show image. But in 1936, tragedy hit. Lucio caught pneumonia and died. Surgeons attempted something never done before, a full separation. It succeeded, but days later, Simplicio died of meningitis. They didn't just share a body, they shared a fate. Their story holds both joy and pain, a reminder of what showbiz gave them, what it couldn't protect them from, and how quickly dreams can fall apart. Number 10. The Marked Man. Jack Dracula's face was a map of ink, every inch tattooed until he became a living exhibit. Born Martin Semnak in 1935 in Brooklyn, his obsession began in 1954 at Coney Island, where he got his first tattoo. By year's end, nearly 30 more adorned him. Eventually, over 400 designs blanketed his arms, chest, and face. With that level of devotion, sideshows became destiny. He worked with Hubert's Museum, Ringling Brothers, Dave Rosen's Wonderland in Coney Island, and a dozen others. Sailor towns like New London, Connecticut, welcomed him as a natural draw. Outside the big tents, Jack's image bled into pop culture. He even appeared in the 1976 cult film The Witch Who Came from the Sea. Some were horrified, others mesmerized, but to Jack, the tattoos were simply who he was. When he passed in 2011, he left behind a face etched into memory, an unforgettable tribute to ink, identity, and sideshow loyalty. Number 9. The Ohio Fat Boy. R.J. James, aka the Ohio Fat Boy, came from Wayne County. By the 1880s, he weighed roughly 500 pounds, enough to earn his keep on the sideshow circuit. James performed with Drew's Dime Museum in Cleveland, joined the Sells Brothers Circus, and, judging from his Eisenman portraits, likely worked New York's Bowery Dime Museums. Crowds of the time paid gladly to see bodies like his, though today, someone his size might wander a mall unnoticed. That contrast says a lot about how culture's idea of strange has shifted. For James, his size was survival. In a world where poverty was a constant threat, stepping on stage to be stared at wasn't glamorous. It was necessary. He was one of many performers who straddled the line between survival and exploitation. The title Ohio Fat Boy sounds harsh now, but it's what paid the rent. His story remains a quiet, honest reminder of how sideshow history was built, pound by pound. Number 8. Yvonne and Yvette MacArthur. Doctors expected failure the moment Yvonne and Yvette were born in 1949, conjoined at the top of their skulls. They were told the twins would never walk, never think clearly, and never live freely. They shattered every prediction. Their IQs were above average, and they learned to walk independently. For 6 months, they briefly joined a sideshow to help cover overwhelming medical expenses, touring with the Royal American Circus. But their true stage was gospel, not the big top. They traveled across the country singing, their harmonies reflecting a bond deeper than blood. By 1987, they were living peacefully in their own apartment, defying every limit once placed on them. In 1992, tragedy came. Both sisters died suddenly and were found 2 weeks later. But their story isn't a tragedy. It's a song of resilience, grace, and strength. Two sisters who turned every obstacle into proof of faith, unity, and willpower no one could take away. Number 7. Clémentine Delay. Delay remains France's most famous bearded lady. Born in Lorraine, she was noticeably hirsute by her teens, though she initially tried to hide it. In 1885, at age 20, she married a local baker and opened a cafe with him. When a carnival passed through in 1900, Clémentine saw their bearded lady and boldly claimed she could grow a better one, and she did. The couple embraced the attention, renaming their shop Le Café de la Femme à Barbe. They sold postcards of Clémentine behind the counter, and as interest grew, she began touring across Europe, appearing in cabarets, circuses, and museums. She famously declined a U.S. tour offer. In 1934, she published her memoirs. Through wit and self-promotion, Clémentine turned facial hair into fame. Though she wasn't as internationally known as Anne Jones, her legend holds. She became more than a performer. She became a symbol of owning what made her different. Number 6. Cialo, the Seal Boy. Stanislaus Berendt was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on November 24, 1901. His undersized arms, caused by phocomelia, resulted from a genetic condition, not, as some wrongly assume, from chemical exposure. Phocomelia became infamous later, linked to thalidomide, which caused deformities in over 10,000 children during the 1950s and 60s. According to many accounts, Stanley was first spotted selling newspapers before rising to fame in nearly every major American sideshow and dime museum. Performing as Cialo, a nod to seal arms, the literal translation of phocomelia, he used adaptive tools and ingenuity to complete everyday tasks. His personality made him unforgettable. While touring with Ward Hall, Cialo formed a surprising bond with a chimpanzee who fiercely defended him from hecklers. Due to physical needs or orthopedic reasons, he often stayed in hotels instead of circus grounds, a choice few questioned, given his reputation. In 1972, he helped overturn Florida's ban on handicapped performers. Cialo retired in 1976 and passed away in 1980 after a proud 3-decade career. Number 5. Fakir Musafar. This one's not a gag, it's real. Imagine a man suspended by hooks through his skin, not in pain, but in pursuit of something higher. That was Fakir Musafar. Born Roland Loomis in 1930, he transformed ritual body suspension and piercing into something close to sacred art. Before the world knew his name, Loomis wore many hats: engineer, dance coach, soldier, even ad man. But the rituals he discovered as a boy in South Dakota never left him. He spent decades privately experimenting, tattooing, piercing, suspending, chasing the euphoric altered states ancient cultures once revered. At 47, he emerged publicly as Fakir Musafar, pioneering the modern primitive movement. He lectured on campuses, performed in sideshows, and ignited a global subculture of body modification that eventually bled into mainstream fashion. To Fakir, the body wasn't just flesh. It was a vessel, a canvas, a path to spiritual insight. When he died in 2018, he left behind more than shock. He left behind a movement. All right, now, let's move to Number 4. Grace Gilbert. Grace, born in 1876, became one of the most striking bearded ladies of her time. By 18, she was already performing, and by 1901, her beard measured 18 inches, longer than any rival. She worked with Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, Hagenbeck Wallace, and McCadden circuses, leaving a strong impression wherever she went. Grace wasn't meek, she was tough. Known for doing hard labor alongside circus roustabouts, she moved through the world like one of the men. When she married in 1910, stories claimed the minister mistook her for the groom, a rumor that may have been carnival hype, but it stuck. At one point, she bleached her beard and was billed as the girl with the golden whiskers, though the upkeep was draining. After marrying, she tried stepping away, but by 1916, she was back, working at Coney Island until her death in 1924. Grace's life was all grit and presence, a woman who never softened for anyone. Number 3. Captain Constantinus. Constantinus is often mislabeled as America's first tattooed attraction, but that honor goes to James F. O'Connell, who debuted at Barnum's American Museum in 1842 and released a dramatic autobiography. While not the first, Constantinus was likely the most heavily tattooed man of the 19th century, possibly the world. His body was covered head to toe, including his scalp, face, finger webs, and genitals. Only the soles of his feet remained untouched. His tattoos were Burmese in style, done in red and blue, featuring animals and Eastern mythology. Likely born in Albania in 1836, he claimed, falsely, that he was kidnapped and forcibly tattooed, a popular trope in the era's circus lore. Despite that story being fiction, the body art was authentic. So remarkable was the work that the University of Vienna studied him. He performed for P.T. Barnum and the Great Farini, earning $1,000 a week and selling fictional memoirs. Number 2. The world's largest moose. Happy. Jack Eckhart, born in 1874 in Fort Wayne, Indiana, weighed 19 pounds at birth and never stopped growing. By age 10, he was already 265 pounds and performing for P.T. Barnum. Over the next 5 decades, he billed himself as the world's largest moose, or elk, cleverly tying his act to the fraternal lodges that dotted America. At his peak, Jack reached 739 pounds. Unlike many in his category, he lived into his 60s, rare for someone carrying that kind of weight. He was a true showman, at times posing nearly nude in Greco-Roman style, completely unbothered by staring eyes. Jack toured non-stop with circuses and sideshows, his big grin masking the physical cost of his frame. In 1937, after decades in show business, his life ended not from health complications, but in a truck accident that crushed his car. He was buried in a casket 6 times the usual size, a final performance for a man born to be seen. Number 1. William Dirks. William Dirks grew up in the backwoods of Alabama, his face shaped by one of the rarest deformities known. A cleft palate split his features in 2, while frontonasal dysplasia gave him what looked like twin noses. People gawked, whispered, or looked away. William didn't. As a teenager, he walked straight into the world of sideshows and made his face his fortune. At Hubert's Museum in New York, he painted a third eye on his forehead, intensifying the bizarre. By the 1960s, he was making $100 a week, enough for independence. But his story wasn't just about survival. It was about love. He met Mildred, the alligator-skinned woman, and the two married, building a life the world said was impossible. His face stunned crowds, but his story ran deeper. A man who faced judgment head-on, found love in the spotlight, and turned what others called a curse into a livelihood filled with grit, tenderness, and triumph. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.